You would please join your hands in helping me welcome Dr. and Mrs. Sane.
Friends, namaste. When I walked in this sacred place, you're able to sense the spiritual vibrations. That's because all of you coming here for so many years, doing the prayers in this environment and getting the blessing from the God, and God is all over. But I'm also pleased to note that all generations, from senior to younger generation, are praying under the same roof, under the guidance of the senior people, and learning the traditions. Though many of you, your forefathers left 150, 200 years ago out of India and settled down in Guyana, and we tend to take away with us the kind of traditions that exist at that particular point in time and maintain the same traditions wherever we go. So what we have brought around in 60s and 70s in this country are the traditions that we learned. And there's no question about it that we go to a particular place for a particular reason that when we are younger we don't quite understand it. But you youngsters in the audience, I want you to know, you're very, very fortunate because the message of Hinduism hasn't changed for thousands of years. And those values, when inculcated in you, will stay with you all your life. And you'll be lucky enough to pass it on to many, many generations to come. So I'm very happy that all of you are here. I've been blessed to have Kumud as my wife for the last 53 years. And before that, for 5 years, she was studying in the medical school together. So she was always a guiding individual, and there's no question, no one is superior or inferior, but as a couple, we help each other's personal growth. And I feel privileged that God wanted us to be together for such a long time and support each other. And finally, what Prabhat said, God chooses different people to do some work for the community. It is a privilege for us to do that. But remember, the Karta is God, Bhokta is also God. With that, let's start with the prayers. Vakradanda Mahakaya Kotisurya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Sarve Pisukhinas Sandhu Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkhava Bhave Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sarveyyam Karvavai Tejasvinavaditamastu Vidvishavai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The last prayer, like every other prayer, is written in Sanskrit. I'll translate the last prayer and then get down to the discussion. And I'd like to be as informal as I can. Half the time I'll open up for question and answer session. The last prayer is always sung before we start studies together or start any community activity. It says, may God protect us all. May we study together as a close-knit family. May our studies and discussions be vigorous. May our studies be enlightening and allow us to realize and then live in the unique identity of divinity, creation, and everyone, Brahman, Jagat, and Atman. May we love one another and never fight. Peace, peace, peace unto us all, today and all. When I decided to discuss prayer, I thought of the quotation in Vivek Chudamani that Sri Shankaracharya made, the third verse. Durlabham Tramayevetat Devanugrahetukam Manushyatvam Mumukshutvam Mahapurusha Samshaya. Adi Shankaracharya said, there are three things that are difficult to receive. Manushyatvam, Mumukshutvam, and Mahapurusha Samshaya. Manushyatva means to be born as human beings who are bestowed with a unique quality that God has given us. And that faculty is called free will, or capacity to make personal choices. This is slightly different than a typical animal who tend to act simply on instinct. That is the Manushya, and we go through several life cycles in different shapes and forms and get a privilege to be born as a human being. The second difficult thing to achieve is mumukshutva, attitude to be a true seeker, desire to be free from sense of limitations and be thus liberated from ongoing cycles of birth, growth, maturity, decay, deceit, and death, followed by rebirth again. That inquisitiveness leads to our studies of Vedanta, or Upanishads, but most importantly, Bhagavad Gita, which is really the nectar from all Upanishads put together. The third important and challenging thing for us is Mahapurusha Samshaya, an opportunity to be in the company of enlightened individuals who are knowledgeable about their true nature. Those individuals have gained that knowledge through personal experience, learning from their gurus, who in turn learned that from the traditional teachers, starting with God Himself. So when we did the puja, it was a puja which was done to Sadashiva. He said, Shankaracharya again, Sadashiva Samarambhat Shankaracharyam Madhyamam Asmat Acharya Paryantam Vandeham Guru Parampara. So when we do the Guru Puja, what we are really doing is a prayer to God. Only thing is the traditional teachers pass on that wisdom from generation to generation. And they feel privileged to pass it on, because there is nothing more enjoyable to share the knowledge. There is knowledge when you share, it multiplies. When you share the grief, it diminishes. Now I recognize everybody in this audience wants to find success and reach that state of happiness and liberation. The question that comes up, how do you achieve that? There are three factors which play a major role for any human being to be successful in accomplishing any undertaking. And those three factors are prayatna, kala, daiva. Adequate effort, time, and divine grace. Now working hard, putting in intense and focused efforts to complete any objective and thus succeed is obviously everyone. The need to work hard over a long period of time with great deal of patience and perseverance is also well recognized by most. Everyone knows that no success can ever come instantly or without prolonged efforts. And as yet, if you look at our own lives, we have experienced many times that in spite of our best efforts, for an extended period of time, success evades us. The reason for that is, besides our efforts and time, prayatna and kala, the third critical factor required for success, that is Daivam, is missing in that case. That Daivam means grace of God. Many of you probably do farming in this community, and hard-working farmers certainly know this fact too well. Despite diligent hard work and timely efforts during the growing season, to provide plentiful rains at right times is only in the hands of God. This creation, or Jagat, functions according to the laws of Ishvara, the Creator, and all of us cannot fully comprehend those laws with our limited intellect. More often than not, it is impossible to decipher whys and wherefores of many happenings around us in our life and the life of our friends. But all the same, favorability of these divine laws is extremely important for the success from our experience. And for that, we must pray. We must pray to God, who always is in control of all the laws of nature. Prayers to Ishvara, our God, with different names, in different languages, different fashions, different traditions, from individuals from the same faith or individuals from different faiths, trust me, reach exactly to the same God. The next question comes up. How do you invoke that grace of God? As I mentioned to you earlier, the simple answer is prayer. Prayer, what does it mean? It means to entreat, to request, to make an humble plea. There is humility in the prayer. It involves a keen awareness and acceptance of one's own limitations and also the greatness of God. In the prayer, there is a trust and conviction that not only Ishvara is omnipotent and therefore capable of giving anything, but God is also merciful. Anything is possible with His grace. Heartfelt prayer invokes the grace of Ishvara. I was so happy to see in this community, in this temple, both the men and women were praying together. Not every community can boast that. I'm so happy that younger and senior people are praying together. I'm delighted that many people misunderstand that important mantras should be only sung by men. That is not true. Vedas never say that. So very, very happy that everybody is singing in this particular place. Then we start saying, prayer yes, prayer to God is yes. But is it not that God is equally kind to all? And not all of us His own children? Then why should He shower His grace upon one and not upon another? Is God partial? Trust me, God is not partial. He's showering His grace equally upon us all. That's exactly what He's doing. And as yet, the efforts on the part of individual are very critical. How cool? The sun is shining brilliant outside. It brightens the entire world in the morning. But if the room has a closed door, closed windows, and dark shades drawn, even though the sun is shining brilliantly outside, the room is pitch dark. The breeze of divine grace is flowing all the time. We live on Lake Minnetonka. But if you want to take a small sailboat to a desired destination, you have to navigate it skillfully, but you have to properly use those winds which are blowing all the time. So you have to use the divine grace in a proper fashion to reach the ultimate destination. The warmth of the fire is always there. We in Minnesota certainly know it gets pretty cold. But unless we approach the fire, we are not going to get that warmth. I don't know. I love to do it. I grew up in India. Monsoons were pretty severe. Even though parents didn't like it, we always wanted to get wet in the rain. It used to be hot. And the first rain was always enjoyable, and we drenched ourselves in the rain. Of course, mom got mad. That's a different story. But we wanted to get wet, and then you can see that, smell that beautiful fragrance that comes up. But for that, you have to fold that umbrella that mom has asked you to carry with you. Then only you can get wet. Similarly, we have to open the gates of our heart to experience the grace of God. Prayer opens the door to our hearts. We experience God's grace in that fashion. If we let go of ahankara, ego, and to me, ego and ahankara is akin to an open umbrella which prevents the drenching rain giving you the fun that you always enjoyed as children. Wait a minute. Didn't you just say Ishvara is omnipotent but is also omniscient? And he knows everything? Then where is the need for anyone to ask for anything in the first place? You should know. Yes, indeed he is omniscient and knows everything. And yet the efforts are required on our part. It is precisely for this very purpose that God has endowed us with a free will, endowed with threefold power in the form of knowledge, desire, and action. Jnana Shakti, Ichha Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. We have the capacity to understand, capacity to desire, and capacity to act based upon that positive, healthy, social work desire. Other living beings, such as animals, are already provided for the basic needs such as food and instincts for preservation of self and the species. They do not need to pray for those basic needs. We as human beings indeed need our personal efforts, including prayers, to fulfill all our goals. Let me stress one more time. Our ego, ahankara, is the greatest problem. In our egotistic society, many say, look, Dr. Sane, I don't have any time to pray. I'm so busy to go to the temple. Why do you waste your time? Why should I not accomplish everything through my own personal effort? That's what this society tells me. Why do I need God's grace? Why do I need God's help in the first place? With such thinking, ego becomes an obstacle to regular prayers in many youngsters' mind. These are youngsters sitting here exception. Human being is under a false notion that everything that one has achieved is only through one's own efforts. Let's take a closer look and see why success is impossible without the favor of Ishvara, Daiva. Let's think. From where did we acquire the desire, the knowledge, and the skills, and all that is responsible factors to make any effort? Were we not born ignorant and helpless as babies? Without parents taking care of us, we could not have survived, leave aside thrive. Have we not been constantly gaining help and favor for acquiring knowledge and skills we possess today from all the teachers, mentors, starting first with our mother? Has it not appeared in our lives that what we badly needed appeared before us without we ever being asking for that? Many times has it not happened that because of a favorable circumstance, we could easily forge ahead of our own companions who were just as capable, if not honestly in my case, more capable than what we are. I can personally tell you that's the truth. Is it not true that we succeeded because we happened to be at the right place at the right time? Has it not happened that somebody totally unknown
favored us without any rhyme or reason, and we benefited from it. Just look back in your life, you'll be surprised that is the case. In this manner, if we objectively look at all our successes in life, we'll realize that without our knowledge, without our asking, we will constantly be favored. Who is showering this grace upon us? That is none other than Ishvara or God. If we arrogantly claim that our success in our past and in the present is entirely due to our own skills, then it shows a lack of understanding on our part. In fact, God continues to shower His grace upon us even when we arrogate our success to our own strength alone. To make a humble request for anything is akin to begging, is it not? But we proudly say that we are not beggars, but we have been begging for one thing after other ever since birth. As youngsters, as boys, we beg for toy cars and candies, for girls' dolls and dresses, and later on we went after the video games, iTunes and iPhones. We hope for success in the school and college. We desired all kinds of pleasures and enjoyments as young adults. Before we get married, we desire for an extraordinary, special spouse, the way I have been lucky to have. And after marriage, for children, home, power, name, and fame. There's not one single day when our mind is free of desires. Each and every desire arising in our mind is nothing but begging. Sorry about that. You're constantly begging for professional success, happiness, peace, security, acceptance by all. Believe me, we are beggars. It is Ishvara, our God, who gives us the results of our actions through the medium of a person or a circumstance, because God is the ruler of this entire creation. Wherever you see prowess, know that to be the gods. If you read the 10th chapter of Gita, Vibhuti Yoga, it will detail every possible divine prowess, beautifully depicted. Let me share a story of a fakir, a Muslim religious mendicant, who came to visit Emperor Akbar. He was asked to wait outside because Akbar was praying. By the time Akbar came out, what he saw was fakir was walking away. So Akbar said, "Kahan ja rahe ho? I mean, where are you going?" He said, "Oh Emperor, you beg from God and then give it to your subjects." Then I thought that maybe, why not directly I approach God with my own wish? So, adios. So who prays? There are 4 kinds of devotees. Shri Krishna says in the 16th verse in the 7th chapter, Chaturvidha bhajante mam janaha sukritornujana arto jitnasvararthati jnani cha bharatarashana. Bhagavan Shri Krishna said, the people given to good and pious actions who worship me are 4-fold. Here Arjuna. The one in distress, Artha. The one who is desiring of wealth, pleasure, and some sort of security, Artharthi. The one whose inquisitive mind, who wants to know me, my relations with him, and wants to understand the purpose of this human existence. And finally, the one who already knows me and has gained ultimate knowledge. What is exciting about this is Lord Shri Krishna respects all kinds of devotees. He says, Artha. Most of us fall into that category. We pray before the exams, pray before the job interviews, and any time we find ourselves in some kind of trouble or crisis situation. Till that time in life, as I mentioned earlier for many of us, we are too busy to pray or go to temple. We have heard plenty of such stories from our friend circle as well. That prayers start only when somebody in the family gets sick. Remember the story of Gajendra Moksha. Now, king of elephants Gajendra was so strong, powerful, egotistic. Then when a crocodile was trying to pull him in the water, he knew, no big deal, I can handle him. And when you are on somebody else's home court in the water, crocodile was able to put him down in the water. But finally, when he realized that he could not win on somebody else's home court, he cried out for help. And then, of course, God came to his rescue and saved him. It's Gajendra Moksha story. Remember Draupadi begged for help from the assembled brave warriors, including her husbands, elders in the court of Kauravas, who Dushasana was stripping her clothes on the express order from the jealous and a lustful brother Duryodhana. But in that court, even Bhishmacharya, Dronacharya, the husbands, nobody came to her rescue. What did she do then? She cried out for the help from the bottom of her heart. Oh Lord, come and help me. God in the form of Krishna instantly came to her rescue and protected her from the embarrassing moment. Now we hear a lot of stories during Satyanarayana Puja. They are like the prayers of Artharthis, those seeking some form of security such as wealth, progeny, or reaching heavens too. What the Agama Shastra teaches during the pujas, archanas, home, yajnas, again to reach the heaven. Now Arjuna, in his own process of spiritual advancement, realized that he would not find happiness even with the victory in Mahabharata war. And he knew that all kinds of pleasures would be at his command after the victory. But he knew that something was not quite about that victory and those pleasures which would follow. At that time he said, no, the life is much more important than just the victory and material pleasures. At that time he turns to his counselor, Sri Krishna. What was the best for him in the long run, Shreyas, and prayed for knowledge, gaining which nothing would else remain to be gained, and make him truly happy and content. As a matter of fact, when he looked at the enemy army on the other side, he saw his teachers and close kinsmen. And he said, Guru nahatva mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhakshamapiha loke hatvartha kamansu guru nihaiva bhunjiya bhogan budhira pradagna. Then after realizing who he had to kill, finally he turns around, Yache yasyan nishchitam bruvitan me shishyasteham shadimam tvam prapanam. He said, better indeed in this world to eat even the bread of beggary than to slay the noblest of the teachers. But if I do kill them because of my duty, and I get all the enjoyments of wealth and desires at my fingertips in this world, but all of them will be tainted with blood. That's not what I want. Tell me decisively what is good for me, Shreyas for me. I am thy disciple. Please instruct me who has taken refuge in thee. This is the state of Jidnyasu, desiring mumukshutva, liberation. And as a matter of fact, the teacher is always waiting for that right disciple to come along. Shri Krishna was waiting for him. If you remember the story, both Duryodhana and Yudhishthira came to ask the help. Arjuna came to ask help. Duryodhana came first in time, was sitting at the top of near his head, and Arjuna came, sat at his feet. Shri Krishna, he was not asleep, he was in deep meditations, he knew who had come first. But he wanted to give a chance to Arjuna to make the decision first. So he made an excuse, I saw him first, so let him make a choice. On one side was his entire powerful army, and the other side was just him, but I'm not going to fight. He wanted to see how much he really wanted Sri Krishna on his side. And when Arjuna said, no, I want you to be me with me, even if you don't want to fight, that's fine. And of course, Duryodhana, not knowing the real truth, was excited. Arjuna won the toss and decided to give a chance to Duryodhana. The point is, a teacher is waiting for the right disciple. But again, he did not open his mouth to teach him till such time that Arjuna was ready to learn. That's the only time where you pour the water when the glass is turned in the correct direction. That is the Jnanasu looking out for Mumukshu. This is exactly the class of devotee who understand the true meaning of the prayer and sings Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma yotirgamaya, mrutyor ma amrutam gamaya. O Lord, lead me from unreal to real, from depth of darkness to supreme light, and from death to immortality. O God, please give me your vision. In the prayer, the devotee says, the things in this world seem to change all the time, O Lord. But you are the unchanging substratum for all this change. The movie keeps on changing. The screen remains the same. Therefore, kindly lead me to that impermanent entity which is moving on to the permanent status that you are. Then he said, my heart is filled with darkness of ignorance, and since my path remains pitch dark because of that, I stumble every step of my way in my life. O Lord, kindly clear that darkness of my heart by lighting the lamp of knowledge. Today, I find myself choosing prayers, that which appears pleasing and attractive, instead of showing the shreyas, that which is ultimately good and in my best interest in the long run. That's the reason why I seem to fall prey to temptations and transitory gains. O Lord, enlighten my path by lighting the path of Viveka, discriminating shreyas from prayas, so that my path becomes crystal clear to me. May you be my guide and direct the right path in my life. And finally, in the prayers he says, from death, O Lord, lead me to immortality. My coming under the sway of my impulses and likes and dislikes itself is like death. May I conquer them and abide in thee, so that I may have a darshan, a vision of you who's immortal. The one who has gained that vision of divine, to live in the knowledge for the rest of the mortal existence in that knowledge, is called Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukta in that knowledge continues to pray as well. This is the fourth type devotee Sri Krishna described, and that is called enlightened one or jnani. When the devotee fully surrenders unto God, specifically by surrendering his ego, and pursues through the studies and other activities in order to realize his true nature, from an enlightened Guru, the ultimate divine grace descends upon him. This comes about when the devotee overcomes his attachments and aversions and the sense of doership by following the karma yoga first, and then diffuses his distractions and turbulence from his mind through meditation, going through 8-step Ashtanga yoga, moving from yama niyama to pranayama and dharana and dhyana, and ultimately going into samadhi. And then transient glimpses of divine vision come and go till such time you tend to stay fully engaged in the state of samadhi. That is the time to recharge yourself and reconnect yourself to the divinity that we each one of us is. This Jivan Mukta, then he lives all through his remaining life, mortal existence, in that knowledge of his true nature, which is none different that eternal existence, absolute knowledge and wisdom, and limitlessness that exhibits through happiness, contentment, and eternal bliss. Wait a minute. You're going to say, wait a minute, this looks like a very challenging, daunting task. But that's the great part of our Hindu faith tradition. Even though this task sounds daunting and challenging, especially if you are starting to look in that direction at a later stage in our lives, even then, understanding the value of prayers and pursuing that path, visiting the temple regularly, staying in the company of people with similar thinking, it'll work out just fine. Sri Krishna says that one who prays to God regularly and with all his heart, that devotee will never ever lose. Which is the satisfying part. Arun will be discussing that in next month, May, 9th chapter. Apiche suduracharo bhajante mam ananyabhat sadhureva cha mantavya samyak vyosito hisa kshipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashati. Even if a person of offensive behavior, durachara, is engaged in prayers and devotional service unto me, he is considered saintly. As he is on the righteous path, he has taken a right exit. He becomes virtuous and realizes lasting peace. O son of Kunti, Kaunteya, I can declare it boldly that my devotee is never ever lost. We just have to remember the life story of sage Valmiki. He was a highway robber, a serial murderer, but even he, when he came in contact with a good teacher like Narada, changed his way of life and became a beautiful poet who wrote Ramayana. God gives us many options how to worship him and in states. And that's the great part about our divinity around. It gives us so many options to do that. And it's up to us to grab onto that. How does he do that? He Sri Krishna again says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tathaiva bhajamya. In whatever manner people worship me, I respond to them accordingly. God blesses the devotees in keeping in the manner and purpose for which the prayers are offered. Now, in summary, the prayer is the most powerful technique available to us as human beings to realize our entire human potentials and then come to live in that knowledge to the rest of our existence. It enables the devotee to overcome obstacles coming from both within and without, regardless of whether one desires material success or spiritual success. Prayer is an absolute must. A devotee who completely surrenders to God through regular prayers will always find everlasting peace and happiness. If he pursues that effort even further, the knowledge of the true nature which offers him the opportunity to live an enlightened individual in this very mortal existence, a real reality in this very life. I'm going to stop and ask any questions to the topic or any other topics pertaining to that you want to ask, from medicine to philosophy.
Namaste, I'm Anu, and thank you very much, Dr. Sane, for the enlightenment. I just have a question about when you pray, you are praying and asking, begging God for something, right? So how do you prioritize, because you have to beg for so many things? So do you pray just thanking God for what you have, or you pray asking for those favors? Because I feel that many times, I try to pray for things, and I put my best effort, as you said, I still feel that I don't get the outcome what I was hoping for. So And because I'm not specifically asking for that, I'm just praying. So it's just kind of hard for me to understand. And I'm a true believer, I pray every day, so I still feel that I don't know how I'm doing, what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right about the prayer, and what should be the right way.
Good. Your question is really appreciated, and it's not only common to you, common to many people, which is fine. As long as you pray from the bottom of your heart, at the right time your prayers will be answered. We don't know the entire reason why the success doesn't come right away, but as long as you maintain the same attitude and not give up your actions, you'll be able to succeed. But it's always important to look at the situation this way. In our eyes, in Kumud's and mine, every day is a Thanksgiving day. It's not only once a year we get. The reason for that is, if we really look at our life, sure there are a few things that we need, but as you rightly pointed out right there are so many wonderful things have been already given to us, been blessed with. If we start recounting them, recalling them, remembering them, appreciating, expressing when you're doing the praise that thank you for this, thank you, then you'll start realizing that you have received far more than you anyone thought you would get. And then your intense desire to get something more will gradually diminish. And by that time, that desire will come to fruition too. But I think starts, as you rightly pointed out at the beginning, start with appreciating what God has already bestowed upon you, but continue to pray the same intense way, open your heart, have trust. The key part is bhakti we talked about. But you need Shraddha as well. Shraddha is not blind faith, but a faith that the outcome will come at the right time from God. That I can guarantee you. Without the Shraddha, it does not come. So you have to have bhakti as you're doing it, but also have Shraddha. Trust me, it will come. And when I meet you next time, you'll say, Dr. Sane, thank you.
How do you build a relationship with God?
How do you build relationship with God? That's the question, right?
A very good question. I have a news for you. You already have the relationship with God. Only thing is, we don't realize it. You see, when the teacher teaches you something, the teacher is not giving you any knowledge, but the teacher is telling you, making you understand that knowledge already exists. Give example. Suppose you have cataracts in your eyes and you come to me as a doctor. I took care of the cataracts, put the appropriate lenses inside, and your eyes were closed with bandage for a day. I came next day morning and took the bandages off. And I told you, open your eyes, now you'll be able to see. I'm the doctor, in this case Guru. You said, no, Dr. Sane, unless you give me a guarantee that I will be able to see, I'm not going to open my eyes. You see what I mean? Only person who can know that he or she can see is that person. So you have to open the eyes. Till that time you have to listen to the teacher who will prepare you to get ultimate leap into the spirituality which exists within you. So when we prayed this morning, we started with the prayer which talked about you and the divinity are exactly the same. Divinity, Atman, Jagat and Atman. Brahman, Atman and Jagat are exactly the same. Because Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvat. So Jagat, which one looks temporary, it is temporary. That also is divine. So you have to enjoy it. At the same time, recognize the impermanence of the Jagat and realize which is the permanent foundation, the Brahman, and reconnect with it. It's always there. And that's what happens when you do deep meditation. You connected with it. During that particular time, there is nothing else left between you and the divinity. So that's the way to become one with God. So the relationship already exists, but open your eyes. You'll be able to see.
How would you reconcile the prayer that you discussed in your lecture today in a non-dualistic way?
Non-dualistic way.
Yes.
So the question was, how do you reconcile your prayers in a non-dualistic way? Non-dualistic way. That's the question.
It's a very intelligent question, explain to you. But this is a step-by-step advancement, step-by-step spiritual growth that individual connects. When we do the prayers, we're doing the prayers to the Murti in front. We're doing the prayers to your teacher, doing to the parents, to the elders, to the Murti that you have. But that basically makes you think at that moment, in the early stage of spiritual growth, the divinity exists in those entities. But really, what you have to advance gradually, that divinity actually permeates all through us. Remember, everything that we know, understand, is an object. Everything, whatever you know this, it's an object. You know this, is an object. The divinity that each one of us has, is the only subject. That subject allows us to identify all the objects. So once you recognize, come to realize, come to experience that what you have inside is Chaitanya, the awareness. That awareness, by the way, that awareness are not hundreds. There's only one awareness. It's all exactly the same in everybody. Just because I have multiple parts with water, and I look at the shining sun outside, I see multiple suns, but sun is only one. If I take a candle and put in a part which has multiple holes, multiple streams of light will come out. So what you have to remember that we are nothing but awareness. Everything else is an object that we identify, we know. And once you have that clear understanding and vision of single common awareness that permeates through the entire creation, then there is no longer dualistic, it becomes one. You see, Sutra Manaiva, Shita said, entire creation is put together in the form of a rosary or a necklace, but the single thread that passes through Chaitanya is me. In the beginning is good that you identify where the sacred places are, who pious people are. You maintain the company, satsangate, nitsangate, that's true. But then you come to realize that divinity is right within you. As a matter of fact, I grew up in Maharashtra, as you heard earlier. We have a tradition that when you come to the temple, you bow down each other. All the people who are respected, they see the divinity in everyone and bow down each other. That is the kind of recognition that you have. It's no longer dualistic. It becomes one because you don't see the difference whatsoever. Once you're able to understand that, experience it, you'll be able to live it. Then you'll be no longer dualistic. You'll be only one.
Dr. Sane's permission, if I can just share one quick comment on dualism from Vivekananda actually. I was reading one of his writings there, and he said it's like a bird sitting on the tree, and you have the shade, like the sun is up, shade, so you see the shadow of the bird. But then when the sun is directly above, then you don't see the shadow anymore, and dualism becomes one, like Dr. Sane also pointed out. So I'll come to you, but Satya Didi has a question, just a second.
Thank you, Dr. Sane, for taking my question. I have two questions, actually. What order should one practice the four main yogas? You did mention karma. One should start with karma and so on. And my second question is, it seems to me that prayers are mostly desires. At what point do we cut the desires out and just totally no desires? Asking God all the time for something when you go to Him. So we need to eliminate that, because that's what the enlightened men says, that there should be no more desires in order to become one with God.
I'm glad you asked those questions. Those are important, very important questions. We talked about four different kinds of devotees this morning. Those who are in crisis, pain, need help right away, emergency room. Those who want security, desiring of something special, material otherwise, arthasi. Then we reach certain level of material success, if you want to call it. And then we start wondering, is that all our life all about? Then you happen to find the right teacher, pursue the spiritual path. But once you reach that oneness that you were talking earlier, what is there to be received? Once you reach that, you don't ask for anything. I mean, the thing is, chemistry, inorganic chemistry, you got electrochemical series where you have elements of higher order. Once you attach a higher metal to that particular entity, the other connections go away. So once you attach the ultimate element, divinity, nothing else is required, because that element is none different than yourself. So once you have reached it, then what you want is want everything for everybody else. Apana sarake karati tarkala. We are trying to help other people. As long as you are alive, God has still given the physical strength, mind to think. What you do is serve others, because Janata and Janardhan is the same. So when you're doing, as a jnani, you're doing the prayers, what you're doing is, in that knowledge, you recognize that other people also can be helped. And that too when they are ready to learn. So that's the only hope. That's why you sing those prayers. We sang in the very beginning. Sarveti sukhina santu. You're not asking for yourself. But of course, as we mentioned earlier, of course, in Sarveti you include yourself too. You see, but basically what you're asking for the benefit of everybody else. At that time, you're not asking for anything for you. What else do you want? You see, once you reach that level of understanding and practice and living, you don't desire anything else. And you ask me the question is, what is the method in which you should follow the various margas? Remember one thing is, all the margas, whether bhakti marga, jnana marga, or karma marga, karma yoga, they're only to get away from the attachments and aversions. You have to get away from becoming nirmama, nirahankara, nirdvandva, and recognize that the real karta and bhokta is Ishvara. Once you have that and develop the qualities of Sthita Prajna, Sthita Prajna Sikabha, the second chapter, then your mind is ready to receive. That once that is there, but still our mind is perturbed with what's going on in the news, the music. You go to the young people's scene, not this special group, where they're having big sound and music. My God, I can't hear it, but I still can hear it. What I'm trying to say is that we keep ourselves so busy with distractions, we tend to forget. What you need to do is settle down the turbulence of the mind automatically the trouble goes away. It becomes very quiet. Right underneath the tree, you are very quiet. Even if the cars are going on the highway, you no longer bother because your mind has become tranquil. So initially, any method to get the attachments ever involved. Settle down the mind through meditation where those disturbances are gone. Then focus it on a mantra, a murti, but again that's dualistic. But once you reach that level, then you connect within yourself, that becomes a samadhi. That's the way to do it. Again, everybody has got a different quality. Three gunas. Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic. Nothing wrong. As a matter of fact, all these three gunas are equally important. Wait a minute. Didn't we learn that Sattvic guna is better than Tamasic? Yes, but they are like three siblings in the family. They're fighting with each other, but they're loving each other. They are like three threads of the same rope that you create. Without that rope is not there. You need all three of them. How so, Dr. Sane? When you go to sleep, it is your tamasic guna is playing. Without sleeping, your brain cannot get recharged. So for us to say tamasic is not important, is not recognizing truth. We have to recognize all of them are important, but you have to remember which is more important at an appropriate time. That's it.
Well, Dr. G, you mentioned about ahamkara, ego, and ego is a problem and an obstacle in someone's life. How can you please elaborate on ego and how can someone remove ego?
Well, obviously, it's a continuous process. It is not easy, but I think practice is able to reach that particular level. I think you just have to give the examples to yourself, and then everything will fall into place. Somebody gets a Nobel Prize in science, and you're recognized around the world that you're a Nobel laureate. And if you go across thinking that you are the Nobel laureate entirely because of my own accomplishments, then you have problems. But you got to remember, your parents who took care of you when you're born, you need nothing. You learn at their feet. You had teachers. You don't know which particular teacher inspired you to pursue a particular career. And sometimes we don't realize who is going to come in your life and become a mentor. That directs you to take a particular path. You come up with an idea. You happen to work as a young man with a senior professor who has been working in the department for 40 years. You bounce off the ideas of it, which is totally out of the box. And the teacher says, no, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense. This one I had not thought about, why don't you pursue it? And then you work with his guidance or her guidance, unable to come up with something unique which has never been described before, and for you get Nobel Prize. But for you to think you get that idea of his own is being naive. That's where the ego comes. As a matter of fact, that's the beauty of our Vedas. However the Vedas came about, it came from the breath of God. The clairvoyant and clairaudient sages in the deep state of meditations were able to receive it at the time of deep samadhi. This is like theoretical physics. Like Archimedes coming with E equal to mc square. I don't understand it because my mind is not prepared for that scientific grounding. But they're still trying to prove more than 100 years later the truth behind that particular equation. That's how the Vedas are. We can talk about Vedas some other time. But the point is, they are pramanas. They are the standards which no one has proved to be wrong even after thousands of years. How old are Vedas? I'm glad you asked that question. In the written form, they are about 6,900 years old. But the unwritten form, they have been there for many, many more thousands before. How so? Because before Vedas were written on patras, they were sung by mouth and memorized by generations. Came from fathers and mothers to sons and daughters. And trust me, I'm so happy to see you girls here. Because it is to be learned by both men and women, boys and girls. It has to be done exactly the same way. And there was a situation where in some section of Vedas, Richa Sak, that our forefathers lived in that particular place where there was a daylight for 6 months, night for 4 months, and transitional period of 1 month on either side. And that the flora and fauna was consistent with subtropical area. If that is the case, obviously our forefathers could not have lived and written those Vedas or sung those Vedas during the present earth cycle, which started 8000 BC, that means 10,000 years ago. Because even now, despite the diminishing ice caps on the poles, there's still some ice. So if it is not in 10,000 years, older than 10,000 years, the most recent ice age lasted for 60 to 70,000 years. You take 60,000 plus 10,000, at least 70,000 years old. Somebody scholarly in the room is going to tell me, Dr. Sane, but I know that sometimes there can be spontaneous change in the magnetic axis of the earth. Right? I did check it, it happened last time 750,000 years ago. So what I'm trying to say is, it has been a very old tradition. And the beauty of it, that's the most exciting part about it, Lee, I want you to understand, is that whatever was written there, that pramana, clairvoyant and clairaudient sages, has not ever been disproved. Everything is coming up. As a matter of fact, you're attending some of the series in the temple. What we are referring to is written thousands and thousands of years ago, and that is still true for the 21st century. You understand what I'm saying? The values remain the same. The Shrutis, Vedas remain the same. Smriti changes. Smriti is like Manusmriti needs to be changed. Yajnavalkya Smriti. That is written by the scholars of their time using the values established in Veda, Shruti, adjust to those situations. That is Smriti. So as we were discussing in the temple last Sunday, Smritis have to be written from age to age. Yuga Yuga. Shruti never changes. I hope I confused you now.
No, actually you answered my question actually. I had a question actually, what is the difference between Smriti and Shruti, and I have heard these Vedas have two overall categories, Smriti and Shruti, and I was going to ask that question. I think you answered that question. What I did also come to know is that if you find from different sources of this information some conflict, it's Shruti that stands clearly. So that's what I learned. So we had a question from the audience, please.
Actually, usually Shruti and Drishti. So clairvoyant and clairaudient.
Good morning, and thank you so much for this session. I go a little back and want to share a couple of my thoughts. One is, as you pointed out, that there already exists a relationship between the devotee and the God.
Mm-hmm.
So my thought is that is it necessary for anyone to really pray for something? Just keep doing regular prayers without any wants, and technically, if there is a relationship, those prayers, hopefully they would be answered by God. Your wants or your, pains, they would be removed by the God. That's one. And second is, indeed, this temple of God, is there a reason to believe that God is, God fulfills the prayers of rich and powerful, or he's, equal to one and all. So, just wanting your thoughts on this.
We discussed it earlier, but I'll comment again. God is equal to everyone. There is no difference whatsoever. But unlike the animals who act on instincts, we human beings bestowed with free will have to make efforts for a period of time, kala, and ask for divine grace. You have to open the drapes of your windows to get the sunlight in. You have to seek the knowledge. Material things, if you ask, you'll succeed, no question about it. When you do Satyanarayana Puja, you get whatever you want. There's not a question. God says, that's what you want, that's fine. When a little kid, you wanted candy, your grandma gave it. Of course, mom said, no, don't eat too much, but grandmother always passed on to you. That's normal. So whatever you want, ye yathamam prapadyante, whatever you want, God will give it to you. But then what happens? You gradually move up in your spiritual growth. Then you realize that candy, after I finished it, I still not satisfied. Then you ask from somebody, he seems to be happy, he seems to be content. He does not want to be wanting anything more. Why is he so happy? Then what you try to do is try to seek only one thing, knowledge. And that knowledge, you start praying for. You start preparing yourself, put the groundwork, and then at the right time, a right teacher will come in your life. And then let you gain that knowledge and ask you to open your eyes. What I'm trying to say is, you don't need to ask for anything else. Just because Trump has money, he is not happy, trust me. He can build a big tall wall, but that's going politics, excuse me. What I'm trying to say is, the happiness is totally different. The thing is, if you read the Bhaja Govindam, you'll find out, you don't need anything more. Whatever is given, you enjoy. There's nothing wrong with it either. But know that this is transient. We have been given two options, sannyasi or sansari. You can take renunciation, or you can be a sansari, which is perfectly fine. But don't get attached to it. We talk about attachment, aversion. Janaka was a samsari. He would wear a diamond crown on his, would silk clothes on his body, but he was not attached to it. Shukacharya, son of Vyasa, who was born enlightened, but Vyasa, before stamping him in okay, he said, go and learn from Janaka. So that's the tradition. Doesn't matter what profession you pursue. Only thing that you need is to get the knowledge as to who you are and come to live it. Don't worry about material things. They'll come. Go.
To know, for using a weapon for spiritual warfare, would you say prayers, which we've been stressing so much this morning about, prayers is supreme to meditation? Please enlighten.
As I mentioned to you, everybody has different tendencies. Some people feel comfortable reaching that level of understanding of equality, getting away from attachments, aversions through bhakti. Some people feel comfortable doing the social service, doing karma yoga. Then that allows them to reach a certain level of doing your groundwork. So not one is superior. All of them are equally important. One should use what is most important. But the key is, once you are trying to follow the path of spiritual growth, stay in the company who have similar-minded people. Shankara, Shankara says in Bhaja Govindam, Satsangatve Nitsangat. Nitsangatve Nirmohat. Nirmohatve Nishchuladatvam. Nishchuladatve Jivan Mukti. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam. So if you stay in the company of good people, you develop detachment from material things which seem to give you transient happiness. Recognizing that this only happiness is transient, you get away from delusion, nirmoha. Once you get the delusion off, you start realizing which is the thing which is totally unchanging, Nischala Tattva. And once you come to realize that Nischala Tattva is not different from you, Jivan Mukti. So yes, you start with Bhaja Govinda and start developing the kind of relationship. But some people, if they don't feel comfortable, as I mentioned with Janata, Janardana, the same thing. You can do it here, or you can do this Janardana Seva, Janata. Okay. Whatever suits you.
Any last question? Just one question, last question. You have one? Please come. This is the last one. While he's walking, what comes to my mind is, Kasturi Kundali Basar Dhunde Mahi, Aise Ghati Ghati Rama hai, Duniya Dekhe Kundan Mahi. So, we have Kasturi, which is really the lector, in the deer's level, and we look for outside. We have one of our own in our community, and I hope you will make the time and come here again and grace with your presence a few times rather than just one time. So, the next question, last question, please.
Thanks, Dr. Sane. Actually, my name is Pranit, and maybe this question is weird because I just want to understand since the concept of duality came up, and if we are, can we define what is God, and in that case, what it is not?
Good. By the way, there is no weird question.
Yeah,
Only weird
I
answers.
asked that because you can't pray to the God which you don't understand, right? Like when you grow, you are told like Krishna is a God, or Lord Ganesh is a God, or Shiva is a God. Right? Without understanding what is God, we can't pray to him because for me at least, I think everything is God. So I just want to understand from your perspective, because definitely you would have come across this question or this sort of question. What is your perspective on what it is not God?
Pranit, I'm glad you asked that question. You cannot, listen to me carefully. Sit down. You cannot know God. Because whatever you know, you are able to objectify. I know this book. I got to know you, Pranit. So you become an object. So God, you cannot know. But God, you can experience. You understand what I mean? God is not different from you. Now, when you are on a spiritual path, if you are not able to understand, that's okay. You are in the company of the people who are pursuing the same path in different state of their spiritual advancement. Keep on asking that question. Just like Dhruva was asked, sit at one place, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, continue doing it. Markandeya was saying Om Namah Shivaya, continue doing it. Whatever your teacher has advised you, when he or she found you appropriate to be accepting as a disciple, whatever the message the teacher gives you, follow it. You don't understand why the message is given. It makes no difference, doesn't understand at all, makes no sense most of the time. But if you follow it and have right attitude in the form of Shraddha, you'll be able to see the beauty in that madness that you felt at the very beginning. But I'm so happy you're asking that question. But you cannot know God. No teacher can teach you what God is. But you know it already, but you know that fact not. Okay?
Thank you. I know.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.
Okay, Satya Didi, I am sure you all know, she is one of the two founders of this institution, and she will be here for So thanks.
Namaste to all of you. Mr. Chairman, our Reverend Dr. Sane Ji, and also my sister Kamud.
She's a doctor too.
And she's
smarter
also
than I am.
a doctor. Yes. Doctor. Miss, well, we should say doctors. Yes. Doctors. I apologize for that.
No. Just teasing you.
Yeah. The guru always say, whenever the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And that's how I feel here today, to have Dr. Sane and Dr. Kumud here with us. We are so fortunate. It's unbelievable. In a place like this, in Minnesota, where it's all cold, we also see it as Kailash. The saints and sages do walk. He may not have a saffron robe on, but that's how I see Dr. Sane. He's a living saint today and sharing that knowledge. We really appreciate it on behalf of all the members and the executive committee of Minnesota Hindu Milan Mandir. We want to thank you both from the bottom of our heart for taking your precious time and coming out here and sharing that divine knowledge. They say many are called, but only a few are chosen. It is when the students are ready to accept these kinds of knowledge, they will make that time to come. Just a quick rundown of what Dr. Sane discussed with all of us so that you go home and you keep these little pointers in mind. First he talked about the prayer, Om Sahana Bhavatu, and that's a very popular prayer that we should all chant every day and feel from the bottom of our heart that we believe in the prayer. Oh God, protect us all. We should also protect the ones who study together and enlighten us all together. And we must not fight. We should always be friends, no enemies, and also to bless even those who are enemies. He also talked about the three things that we should all be reminded about, that we are all humans of free will, and we must have the attitude of a seeker. And also, our quest should be that we would like to be in the company of the enlightened beings, like himself also, and also my sister here. Also, he talked about the goals of human birth. We all, as humans, we're looking for success in life. We're all looking for happiness and also for liberation. And there are ways how to achieve these. Also, he talked about the needs. We should take the time and effort, and also we need the divine grace of God. So we need to take the time and effort, and also we need the divine grace of God, because only when we have the grace of God, He invoked that upon us through prayers, then it touches our heart, and then prayers can ultimately come from our heart. Because for prayers to become effective, and I heard some of the questions are like, I pray all the time and nothing is doing. What happened? So if it comes from your heart, like Arjuna when he surrendered to Lord Krishna, then the Lord spoke to him and started teaching him. So we are all Arjunas, so we should also do that. And he talked about how God is not impartial. So never think of God being, half favorites. We're all his favorites. Think of it that way. Also, he talked about the 4 kinds of devotees, and we're all, we all fall into that category. So we're not all born saints. We have to develop ourselves to get there. There are devotees who are in distress, so they're always seeking the Lord through prayers when they're in distress. And those who are always crying out for wealth and power. And then you have ones who are very enlightened, and they have been coming here age after age, and that's how they have evolved and become enlightened, and we all can also be like that. We do need the direction of the Lord, so that popular prayer, Asatoma Satkamaya, we should all try to chant that prayer, and also realize the absolute, because we have the potential to be that absolute as well. And so prayer is very, very needed in our life. We're very thankful, and thank you very much, Dr. Sane.